Hey, guys, welcome back to my channel. This is a story of what if Naruto trained seriously, after the Sasuke retrieval arc. After Naruto and Sasuke's fight at the Valley of the End, Naruto has an epiphany, and everything he thought about changes. Now during his training trip with Jiraya, the blonde trains like crazy, returning to the village, 2.5 years later, as a new shinobi. One who vows to protect the village even if it costs his life. However, those who knew his usual nature wished he didn't change. Before we start, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel, it means a lot to me, and check the description for the creator of this great fanfic. Now let's start the story. Hey guys, I forgot to tell you that the current What If Naruto will be slightly changed into What If Naruto Trained Seriously Regret. I've just added regret to the title, nothing much, it will be at least a different title compared to other YouTubers because I've searched Naruto Trained Hard, there are more than 2 titles like this, so if I add the author's title to this then it will at least be kinda different. I hope you agree with me. Hello and welcome to another chapter of regret. This is my favorite. The word, regret, for me has a different meaning to the one people use as often. Regret, for me, isn't used to somehow redeem a wrong choice in the past, but a right one in the future. No one can change what happened in the past, but everyone can change the future. That's how author created this Naruto, not the real character, because that's Kishimoto's creation. He could wallow in self-misery over not training and maybe preventing some events from happening, but he didn't. He trained and it's now showing his skills to the world. And it's just the beginning. Listen it and tell me what you think. Chapter 12, Saving Gaara. Inside the cave, 2 groups of opponents stood immobilized, facing the other with severe scrutiny in order to grasp any possible information to capitalize upon. On the side near the cave entrance, was the joint force of 2 hidden villages, namely Konohagakure and Tsunagakure, fully intent on saving the unconscious Kazekage that lied unconscious behind the 2 Akatsuki members. Deidara, for his part, kept smiling the entire time, making it appear that they were too late to salvage the leader of the hidden village of the sand. And I thought this would be relatively easy. Now we have to fight everyone and still protect his body. Deidara said as he kept his smile. After all, he enjoyed a good fight. We need to hurry up with them. I don't like to keep people waiting. While hearing the conversation, Naruto was focusing every bit of his mental capacity in order to remember what little information he had on the 2 members. The blonde one's name was Deidara and he was a missing nin from Iwagakure. Jiraiya often mentioned that he knew little to nothing about his skills, but the pervert knew him to be long-range type. Regarding the man's partner though, Naruto didn't recognize this man, if he could even be called a man. His appearance was strange and the blonde wondered if he was even human. Looking at Kakashi, Naruto asked him about their course of action. We have to establish whether or not the Kazekage is still alive first. Their position suggests every intention of protecting Gaara's body, so it's likely that they still need him for something. I guess we'll have to engage these 2 in combat. Be careful though, they are S-ranked criminals. Naruto, you and I will take on the blonde, while Chio and Sakura will take the other guy. Upon hearing the plan, everyone nodded and assumed their respective battle stances. Suddenly though, a huge explosion erupted in the middle of the field, creating a dense fog. Quickly, Naruto made some hand seals and molded some chakra. Futen Daitapa, wind release. Great breakthrough technique. The sudden increase in wind was enough to blow the fog away, but it didn't prevent Deidara from fleeing on top of a white bird of some sort, forcing Kakashi and Naruto to follow behind. Since the other was still there, Sakura and Chio remained inside the cave. Sakura, we need to be careful with him, Chio said as he focused her entire attention on the Akatsuki's puppet user. To Sakura, it sounded like the old woman knew the man they were facing, but Chio beat her approaching question and explained. I'd recognize the use of Kugutsu puppet art any time, and I certainly recognize the one in front of us. I guess we finally meet Sasori-kun, the Akatsuki member muttered a single snort at the comment. I wasn't expecting for you to know it was me, though I am not surprised that you figured it out, Obasan, grandmother. As soon as the words reached Sakura's ears, she looked in shock at Chio, who never took her eyes away from Sasori. For 20 years, I wondered what had happened to you. You fled the village willingly and became a missing nin, how could you do something like this? Spare me the sentimental crap, Chiyo-obasan, mumbled Sasori, much to Chiyo's snarling as he continued. I wouldn't have done half the things I accomplished if I was driven by sentimentality alone. Being tied to a hidden village makes you weak and hinders any shinobi's potential. No matter what ambitions I had, I was prohibited by the late Sandaime Kazekage. I chose to leave, because if I stayed there, I would never reach my full potential, and as you can see, I am pleased with the results and will never regret my decision. Sakura was watching the interaction between grandson and grandmother, but in actuality she was looking at Sasori, while trying to gather some information on the weird-looking guy. But it was a rather difficult task, considering that everything was hidden behind the Akatsuki robe. According to the old woman, the being in front of them wasn't Sasori, but a puppet. Sakura just hoped that she would be strong enough to face an S-ranked criminal with an extensive knowledge of kugutsu and deadly poison. Sakura, you'll need to do everything I tell you in order to beat him. It appeared that the discussion was over and that the biggest fight of Sakura's life would begin. With Naruto after leaving the cave, Naruto and Kakashi followed the flying Deidara who was carrying Gaara's unconscious body. The technique managed to extract a considerable chunk of the demon trapped inside the Kazekage, and because of this, no one knew if Gaara would even wake up. Nevertheless, Konoha wouldn't give up on him just yet as Naruto and Kakashi followed from the ground. The altitude was a problem in their eyes and both knew that Deidara could simply escape with Gaara's body. Kakashi-sensei, what should we do? If he stays up there. I know Naruto, I'm thinking. None of our techniques have a long enough reach and he certainly will dodge anything that he sees coming towards him. Naruto knew something about his sensei that few people did. Kakashi was the elite of shinobi in Konoha for a reason, and he'd managed to defeat every single opponent he ever encountered, at least so far that is. Surely, Kakashi must have a technique to use. Suddenly, Naruto saw that Kakashi exposed the Sharingan and was now focused on the Tiger Seal. Naruto, I'm not certain if this technique will bring him down, but it will certainly hold him in place for you to act. The blonde smiled at the vote of confidence, when he noticed something strange about Kakashi's Sharingan. Its design was different now, he couldn't describe it, but it wasn't the three normal tomes any longer. I didn't know that the Sharingan could be evolved past the three tomes. Wait, I remember Jiraya talking about Itachi's new Sharingan, Manjinkyu I guess the name was. Did Kakashi reach Itachi's level? I guess that will be a question for later. Kakashi was focusing his entire attention on Deidara now, not even aware that Naruto wasn't by his side any longer as he got deep inside the woods, focusing as much chakra as he could on his feet, as well as controlling the air resistance in front of him to run faster. But his attention never diverted from the flying Akatsuki member. It took only a moment to dodge an incoming tree branch, before Naruto saw something that surprised him greatly. Deidara was involved in some sort of transparent wave and was having trouble escaping from it. Whatever it was, this was his signal to move. As for Kakashi, he was focusing every bit of chakra into his eyes as he managed to hold the technique longer. The dimension he created around Deidara wasn't enough to deal with the enemy, but the least he could do was to hold the man a while longer so that Naruto could find a way to bring him down. As the technique required a lot of chakra to work, Kakashi started focusing on at least severing a limb or two, inhibiting his movements. He managed to take one arm, before he stopped the technique. He just hoped that Naruto managed to find a way to bring Deidara down. Suddenly as he looked, he could see a trail of white smoke going up, much to his surprise as he recognized Naruto's shadow clones. Kakashi smiled at such improvisation. Naruto used Kage Bunshin after Kage Bunshin in order to reach Deidara's level. Then, Kakashi's Sharingan could see Naruto grabbing two windmill shurikens out of nowhere, before focusing chakra through the metal. It was something odd that Kakashi felt as he saw Naruto taking action. 3 years ago, Naruto would have done something wrong and ruined the chance, but now Kakashi's opinion was different. He had faith in Naruto. Deidara seemed to be focusing only on his missing arm and didn't notice Naruto was close by as the blonde threw the windmill shuriken straight at Deidara's position. Deidara was holding his shoulder, while screaming like never before. He was more perplexed than in pain, as he wondered what kind of technique Sharingan no Kakashi used on him. He was so absorbed in pain and perplexity that he didn't see Naruto's windmill shuriken approaching his position with the promise of cutting him in half. As soon as he looked up, his eyes widened to extreme proportions. From his position, he could see only one approaching him, and after focusing chakra to his legs, Deidara managed to jump over the shuriken in time, but because of the wind chakra surrounding the weapon, the Akatsuki member felt a deep slash on his stomach. The pain blinded him to the second windmill shuriken's presence, but contrary to the first one, the shuriken's target was the bird. It ripped the clay bird in half and Gaara's unconscious body started falling, until two Naruto clones grabbed him, while at the same time focused on wind chakra in order to smooth the drop until they landed on top of a tree. The real Naruto was just waiting on the ground as he saw Deidara falling down hard. At the same time, Kakashi arrived and looked at his student for a while, before sighing in dismay. Naruto was an entirely different man, and he didn't know how someone could change so much in such a short amount of time. Not only did he manage to rescue Gaara from an S-ranked criminal, but also managed to severely wound him to the point that Deidara might not be able to get away alive. Suddenly, a blur appeared in front of them, as Deidara threw a great number of clay spiders at Kakashi and Naruto. As soon as the spiders reached the two ninjas' location, he triggered a huge explosion, enveloping both Naruto and Kakashi completely. Despite the pain, the Akatsuki member smiled at winning the battle, before he realized that the clones didn't vanish like expected. Suddenly, Deidara felt chakra usage inside the blast. Sweetened Sujinheki water release water wall technique. Instantly, the fire was extinguished as Naruto immediately charged Deidara with his bow staff, forcing the man to use his least favorite skill. Close contact fighting. It didn't mean that he was a pushover, as Naruto couldn't land a hit. As Deidara managed to retreat a distance from the rather petulant shinobi, he threw a couple more clay spiders at Naruto. Before they could hit him, however, two kunai suddenly impaled the spiders, causing them to explode in advance, much to Deidara's ire. As Kakashi landed next to Naruto, he received a thank you from his student. Watch out for that clay of his, Naruto. My Sharingan detected a large gathering of chakra within those clay spiders, and from what I was able to grasp, our opponent uses his clay like a bomb. Don't let it get near you, or else you're done for, said Kakashi, as he charged Deidara with a Chidori in his right hand. Deidara was impaled instantly, but as soon as the hand appeared through his back, he turned into clay, forcing Kakashi to jump away from a barrage of clay serpents that headed his way. This time, Naruto came to the rescue as he went through a series of hand seals. Futen Kazakiri wind release, wind cutter technique. One by one, the serpents were sliced in half. Naruto wasn't through as he located Deidara's whereabouts, hiding behind a couple of trees a few meters northeast. This time, going through a long series of hand seals, Naruto focused a large quantity of chakra before a giant water dragon roared from behind Deidara. Sweetened Suiryuden no Jutsu water release, water dragon technique. The earth user turned a minute too late and was enveloped completely by the technique. Kakashi didn't waste any time and immediately sent a lightning wolf straight towards the wet Deidara. He understood quite quickly that his life was over if the wolf reached his position, so Deidara gathered a bit of clay from his pouch and produced a big ball of clay. He threw it at the incoming wolf, before fleeing while the two shinobi were busy dealing with the explosion. His objective was the Sand Jinchuriki, and seeing as Konoha had Gaara in their custody, his job was now to retrieve the body and flee right away. However, it seemed like the blonde's clones just vanished and Deidara was becoming impatient. Suddenly, he saw the two behind a large bush and smiled. Producing two spiders, Deidara surprised the clones as he ignited the clay arachnids, immediately dispelling the clones. Gaara's body fell limp on the ground, earning a smile from Deidara upon seeing his prize in front of him. However, it took one step on his part before a great array of shurikens stopped his movement, causing the man to snarl from the leaf shinobi's attempts. Immediately, the real Naruto and Kakashi landed in front of Gaara as they observed Deidara with severe scrutiny. So far, they only managed to take one of his arms and damage some parts of his body, but this fight was taking longer than expected. And where chakra was involved, prolonging a fight against an S-ranked criminal would only lead to chakra waste, chakra that could be used for other means like taking the cage to a safe place. As a leader, Kakashi started analyzing the pros and cons of dealing with Deidara or fleeing with the Kazekage's body. The mission is to rescue Gaara, not deal with the Akatsuki. However, Kakashi knew that Deidara wouldn't allow them to flee that easily. He was a man of unknown resources with that clay of his. Looking at Naruto from the corner of his eyes, Kakashi started formulating a plan. The techniques Naruto pulled thus far, the agility he displaced when crossing the desert ran through his mind. To this point, Kakashi wasn't sure if he saw everything Naruto was capable of. His plan was simple. Naruto would keep Deidara occupied while Kakashi contacted Guy's team and handed Gaara to them. They would take him back to Suna while his team handled the Akatsuki. Naruto, can you keep him occupied for a moment? Naruto looked at his sensei from the corner of his eyes, before looking at the opponent once more. What are you planning, Kakashi-sensei? Our top priority right now is to rescue Gaara and take him back to Suna. I'll hand him to Guy and then return to assist you. Naruto stopped for a moment to analyze the situation. From the looks of things, Kakashi was only waiting for his signal in order to proceed with the plan. Deidara was a tough opponent and his explosive clay was deadly if placed in contact with the enemy. However, what Kakashi didn't know was that Naruto wasn't showing everything and his absence could give Naruto the choice to deal with Deidara properly. I'm good here, Kakashi-sensei, take Gaara to safety. I'll cover you. The smile on his face scared Kakashi for a moment. He knew how much Naruto craved for a fight here and he wondered what he was hiding. Looking at Deidara one last time, Kakashi quickly grabbed Gaara's body and vanished towards the river, surprising Deidara, who grabbed some clay inside his pouch. However, his instincts told him to jump the same time as a sword of wind charged at his old position, slicing through the tree entirely. Deidara looked at the blonde only to see that he was smiling. Now that my sensei is busy with other things, we can increase the level a bit. It didn't take 1 second before Naruto took his weapon and charged Deidara in close combat. This time, though, the battle rhythm was different as the Akatsuki member tried dodging Naruto's combo. It was like his speed doubled and Deidara wasn't sure if he could dodge for much longer. Suddenly, as soon as he dodged a swing that was aimed after his head, Deidara was surprised when he sensed Naruto's kick to his chin, sending him flying. Jumping high, Naruto started beating Deidara like a punching bag with his staff, before he finished with a powerful stroke to Deidara's shoulder. The noise of bone breaking echoed through the clearing, before he was immersed in pain. He was falling very fast, but Naruto still had one attack left as he was falling as well. Doing some hand seals, he exhaled a ball of air straight towards Deidara, accelerating his fall. The hole created by his fall was huge and Naruto landed safely next to it as he looked at his opponent who was holding his dislocated shoulder, while looking at Naruto with pure anger. Naruto was about to carry out the finishing move, when suddenly 2 jets of water charged at him out nowhere, forcing him to jump away. He looked up to see a red head with 2 strange metallic structure on his back, landing in front of the injured Deidara. The blonde Akatsuki member looked up and saw the man in front of him, before he remembered his partner's true form. Sasori-senpai, it seems I overestimated your capabilities, Deidara. Getting beat by a teenager. Instantly, Naruto feared the worst as he heard the interaction between these two. If he was the other one, then what happened to Sakura and Elder Chio? Before he could ask Sasori what happened, the man smiled and addressed Naruto. Took a little while for me to recognize you, but now I know why you beat Deidara, Kyuubi no Jinchuriki. Naruto immediately narrowed his eyebrows upon being discovered, but maintained his focus. Deidara was beaten, his shoulder was dislocated and the pain he was feeling prohibited him from even moving. The problem was this new opponent in front of him. He knew next to nothing about him and this fact alone scared Naruto. It was one thing to fight a god whose powers are largely known, but it was another thing to fight a human to whom he knew next to nothing about. In the ninja world, even the tiniest detail could mean his death in the battlefield. Jiraya taught him that much. Naruto didn't want to think the worse and he prayed that Sakura was alright. With Kakashi as soon as he left Naruto, Kakashi immediately contacted Guy through the intercom. The news he received wasn't the one he expected. Guy's team was facing their carbon copies as it happened to be the seal's mechanism of defense. His only choice, right now, was to assist Guy and deal with his copy, before he could count on the green beast of Konoha. It didn't take much time before Kakashi arrived at the fight's location. They were on a cliff a few miles north of Naruto's location. To Kakashi, it was an amazing display of taijutsu between masters. But the mission required Guy's help and he couldn't wait for the man to deal with this on his own. The problem was that he couldn't figure out who the real guy was and using the Sharingan for it required a great deal of chakra. However, it was needed for this occasion. Before he lifted his Hitai-8 however, he saw the real guy greeting him with that goofy smile and the usual thumbs up, allowing Kakashi to locate the real guy. Leave it to Guy to do something like that in the middle of a fight. Focusing on a quick series of hand seals, Kakashi created a thick mist that enveloped the two combatants. When the other guy realized what was happening, his throat was sliced by Kakashi's kunai. Once dealt with, Kakashi handed Gaara to Guy, who gave his word to take Gaara to safety. Kakashi, then, focused the chakra that he was saving in Sunshine to Naruto's location. Once he appeared, he saw that Naruto was facing a new opponent and he wondered what happened to the other one. Seeing that the blonde wasn't in immediate danger, Kakashi scouted the region for the other opponent. He found Deidara badly injured inside a hole and wondered how Naruto was able to deal with the slippery snake. Seeing his chance to deal with an Akatsuki opponent, Kakashi transformed into the Anbu captain he once was. While watching the other enemy firing jets of water at Naruto and the blonde dodging skillfully, Kakashi immediately landed behind Deidara, who was occupied nurturing his broken bones. Activating his Chidori, Kakashi plunged his hand in Deidara's heart, before the man was able to realize who was behind him. However, for an S-ranked criminal, it was too easy and Kakashi realized that upon looking the clay doll in front of him just like last time. Sighing in dismay at the elusive individual, Kakashi focused on Naruto's fight against the other opponent. Naruto fired a gust of wind at the man's direction, but he jumped out of the wind's reach, before attacking Naruto this time with a strong jet of fire, forcing the blonde to use the water wall technique to defend himself. Using his Sharingan, Kakashi managed to detect the same presence as he felt inside the cave and concluded that he was Deidara's partner. So, what happened to Sakura and Chiyo? Oh my god, it can't be, they can't be dead, Obito, Rin, Kakashi-sensei. The man turned immediately to see Sakura carrying a badly injured Chiyo. He immediately went to help them, before he placed the old woman behind some bushes for Sakura to take care of her. While doing this, Kakashi asked for a full report on the man Naruto was fighting. Sakura explained the man's name was Sasori of the Red Sands and Kakashi's eyes widened to unseen proportions. It was the man who killed the Sandaime Kazekage, Sasori of the Red Sands. Sakura explained that the man was insane and that he transformed the Sandaime Kazekage's body into a puppet just so he could use the man's bloodline, Iron Sand. Sakura explained that Chiyo was able to destroy the Kazekage's puppet by using her selection of puppets, but Sasori was far too powerful for them and almost killed Chiyo with a deadly poison. I managed to make an antidote while in Suna that cured her, but she is in need of medical assistance, ASAP. Explained Sakura, earning a nod from Kakashi. We managed to secure Gaara, he's with Guy right now. However, I have to help Naruto. He managed to deal with the man's partner but I fear Sasori in on a whole other level. I trust that you'll be safe here Sakura. Sasori is the last enemy left. Deidara is far too injured to pose a danger, but keep your eyes peeled for his presence. Sakura nodded and comforted Chiyo with her medical technique, while Kakashi went to help Naruto, before he heard them talking for a bit. You know, for a teenager, you certainly have skills Jinchuriki. Anyone else would be dead right now, but you managed to hold your ground against me and that's saying something. Sasori said, while holding two swords in each hand, dripping with a strange black liquid. Naruto was already panting for breath. Sure, his chakra capacity was larger than a few Junin put together, but fighting against S-ranked criminals was an entirely different scenario. It didn't mean he wasn't enjoying this fight, though. I thank you for the compliment. I'm enjoying this fight immensely. However, I fear this is taking too long, don't you think? Sasori smiled at the blonde's courage. He had only one scroll left on his back which was his ultimate weapon to use. To this point, he never used this particular scroll because he never felt the need to. However, with the Kazekage gone as well as the fire and water scrolls, he'd have to use this as last resort. Suddenly, the scroll vanished and it appeared in front of Sasori, before it opened. Immediately, 100 puppets appeared, before Sasori opened his left chest to reveal an intricate set of chakra wires connecting to every one of the puppets. Naruto watched in awe as the sheer number of puppets just waiting for the leader's order to attack. He bet that just like Sasori's weapons, the puppets were loaded with deadly poison. Taking his staff, Naruto started spinning over the top of his head in preparation for a technique of his creation. As a shinobi, the blonde learned that secrecy was his most trusted ally and that showing off his full skills would spell trouble in the future. However, he didn't have a choice this time manner as the puppets in front of him would easily slice him to pieces otherwise. You should feel honored, Jinchuriki. By this time, Naruto's bow staff was already spinning fast enough to create small gusts of wind around him. Why is that? Asked Naruto, to which Sasori smiled. You're the first one to see this collection of mine. Quite beautiful, aren't they? No matter what you're trying to do, you just can't stop them all. Naruto immediately released one of his hands from the staff, while never ceasing the movement. He started to mold the necessary chakra exactly the same time Sasori's puppets started to charge. The wind around the blonde began to increase, until it created an invisible shield around him. Futen Bue Engai, wind release, protective dome technique. Kakashi saw them move and cursed as he arrived too late to stop the puppets from attacking his student. As he looked at the position Naruto was in, he suddenly sensed a huge usage of wind chakra. As he focused on his Sharingan, he could see a dome of sort protecting Naruto from all the attacks. Naruto started spinning the staff faster, while at the same time molding the necessary chakra. This technique was his defensive trademark, but for someone with a huge chakra capacity like him, chakra control was his weakness. The technique required a constant molding of chakra in order to remain active, and while he trained his chakra control, it wasn't 100%. One by one, the puppets were being sliced upon coming in contact with Naruto's technique, but their numbers were too much for Naruto and he was starting to lose control over the technique. Sasori already lost more than a half of the puppets, but he managed to see that the blonde's admirable efforts were starting to fade. Suddenly, Naruto relinquished control over his technique while Sasori still had 20 puppets under his control. The man had a smile on his face as he saw the defenseless individual panting on the ground. As the other puppets attacked, Sasori was sure this time that the Jinchuriki was within his grasp. Surely, finding the one-tailed Jinchuriki wouldn't be too hard, and by capturing the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, the Akatsuki would have the strongest tailed beast ever to grace these lands, in their custody. Nothing could stop him now. Doten Doryuaheki, Earth Release. Earth Wall Technique. Sasori was surprised when the sudden Earth Wall Technique appeared and wondered just who was the cause. The Jinchuriki, as far as he knew, didn't have an Earth affinity. Naruto looked up to see his sensei in front of him, molding chakra to maintain the Earth Wall Technique. Sensei, sorry I took a little while to arrive. Naruto. We managed to secure Gaara. Guy is taking him to Suna as we speak. Kakashi explained, before Naruto got up with a smile on his face as held his right shoulder. I'm glad to hear that, but how can we beat this guy? Right now, he's counting on those puppets to deal with us. We just have to destroy them. How much chakra do you have left? If Naruto had to guess, he had chakra left for 2B ranked techniques, maybe 3, but that wasn't much to beat 20 puppets and at the same time dodge their poisoned weapons. However, there was the possibility of using that chakra. Given the circumstances, he guessed he had little choice in the matter. Of course, Kakashi would object. I don't have much to use. But I could use his chakra and be done with it quickly. Kakashi knew what Naruto was talking about and he dreaded every second of it. Using the fox's chakra could help them beat Sasori, but at the same time, Naruto might lose control over it and attack everyone nearby, meaning he and Sakura as well. However, Kakashi was remembering something that Jiraya said once they returned from their training trip. Flashback on Jiraya and Kakashi were inside a dango restaurant talking about what happened during their absence, when Jiraya turned serious for a while. Kakashi, I'm handing Naruto into your care now like we discussed 3 years ago. The pervert Junin looked at the pervert for a while, before going back to his Ika Ika book. Sure thing, I trust that nothing bad happened during the training trip. Nothing relating to the fox. We trained all 3 of the ninja arts, hoping to make him stronger in order to better fight the Kyuubi's urges. I trust he has more control over the fox, maybe up to 2 tails without losing his mind over it. But to be safe, I have designed a specific seal that manages to cut off the link between the fox and his chakra. I trust that you'll manage to control him, Kakashi. In fact, I'm counting on you to do the right thing here. Kakashi remembered the one time he felt the fox's chakra being used by Naruto and he could feel how powerful it was. At the time at the bridge, Naruto wasn't even using one tail's worth of power. Kakashi could only imagine how much powerful he could be with 2 tails worth of the fox's energy. Don't worry Jiraiya-sama, I'll take care of him. Flashback off now. Looking at the boy behind him, he could see a firm resolve on his face. In any case, Naruto could control the fox's chakra up to 2 tails worth of power. Okay Naruto, but don't overdo it. There is so much you can take before losing your mind. The blonde smiled at Kakashi's warning, before he focused on the fox's chakra. Suddenly, his eyes changed color and a red aura surrounded his body, healing his every wound and restoring his chakra capacity. With it, his muscles were more defined and his agility doubled. He then turned to his sensei and showed a smile that made Kakashi shiver inside. I'm glad he's on our side, I won't be long Kakashi-sensei. Naruto said, as the wall succumbed and they could see 20 puppets. Sasori watched the ninjas from Konoha, before taking a closer look at the blonde one. Something had happened to him, he could feel it. Upon severe scrutiny, he could feel the fox's menacing aura. Instantly, he narrowed his eyes in deep focus as his enemy had something up his sleeve this entire time and for the first time, Sasori was outsmarted by someone. Of course, he still had numbers on his side, but for how long was the question. Immediately, 10 of his army charged Naruto at the same time. Kakashi escaped the puppet's charge as he knew what would happen if he stayed. But Naruto just remained there, looking down. When the puppets were inches away from his nose, Naruto smiled. Seconds later, a huge explosion surrounded him and the puppets. For a few seconds nothing happened until the smoke cleared and Kakashi could see a bunch of scrap wood on the ground. Sasori was able to feel one by one, his puppets being slammed, beaten and broken. It didn't take long before only 4 puppets stood between Sasori and his life as Naruto was like a blur, taking care of the opposition. Kakashi was astonished by the speed in which his student was moving. If he was already fast before the Kyuubi, now he was more like a blur, even to his Sharingan. Focusing some chakra to his red eye, Kakashi could see the same ability as he saw in the desert, just doubled. As soon as Naruto finished the last puppet, he stood in front of Sasori, breathing normally. It was an exercise both Jiraiya and his sensei Sojiro taught him. Whenever perturbed or angry with something, remember to control your breathing and clear your head of outside influences. And as he looked at the enemy, Naruto smiled at how much easier he could control the fox's power. Sasori fixed eyes with Naruto's fox-like eyes like he knew his destiny. However, for some strange reason, he didn't dread the outcome of this fight. He transformed his body into a puppet in order to rid himself from the first cause that people get killed over, emotions. A shinobi, according to Sasori, must sever all ties in order to reach his or her fullest potential. Sever ties with the village, lovers, friends, family. But now, he was watching his death in front of him and by someone who outsmarted him. If he was destined to die, then at least it was by someone whose skills he came to respect. Suddenly, Naruto started making a large series of hand seals in quick succession, before he muttered the last words that Sasori would hear. Futen Saraisu no Tatsumaki, wind release, slicing tornado technique. The Akatsuki member was immediately engulfed as the hurricane started slicing his body components, as well as the scroll located where his heart should have been, killing Sasori instantly. Afterwards, Naruto managed to stop the flowing of the Kyuubi's chakra and kneeled on the ground, panting from lack of breath. Using the fox's chakra was like poison running through his veins. Every minute he used it, he felt his skin crawl and body burning up, hence why he stopped depending so much on the fox's chakra. Kakashi kneeled next to his student, deeply proud to call him that. Naruto, so far, showed every attribute of being able to deal with S-ranked opponents. Throwing Naruto's arms over his shoulders, Kakashi could feel how tired Naruto was, but that was understandable. Hell, the chakra Naruto consumed today was more than twice of his entire capacity. Within seconds, Sakura and Chio appeared to their side and Chio asked of Gaara. Kakashi explained about Gai's involvement in taking Gaara back to Suna and the fact that Neji was with them, so no one would be able to sneak up behind them and catch them by surprise. Sakura saw the state in which Naruto was in and smiled. Despite the obvious fatigue and possible broken ribs, Naruto was smiling, and that alone forced her to smile in return. I never would have thought Sasori-senpai could be killed, and by a brat no less, said Deidara, surprising everyone as he stood in a clearing between trees, holding what appeared to be clay with his only hand. His entire body was a mess, all courtesy of Naruto's bow staff. He was panting like crazy and only had chakra for one last technique. However, he sure as hell wouldn't let Konoha get away, even if this is the last thing he did. Bringing the clay close to his mouth, Deidara took a bite of it, before swallowing it whole, confusing them for a moment. Kakashi, though, could see with his Sharingan that the opponent was focusing all his chakra to one single spot inside his stomach. To the others, they could see Deidara inflating like a balloon, and everyone knew what happened when you pump too much air inside a balloon. As the chakra became too unstable, the man exploded. The members of Konoha and Chiyo were too close and no one would be able to get away from the blast. Kakashi focused every bit of chakra, before evolving his Sharingan. However, he was too late to use it, as the ball of fire was already approaching their position. He couldn't do anything to prevent it. Naruto looked at the incoming blast and suddenly remembered something his sensei taught him. Flashback on: the sun was already setting as Naruto and Sojiro was next to the waterfall, training. Sojiro watched Naruto train non-stop and smiled at the brat's stamina and resolve in perfecting his ninjutsu techniques. Naruto, come here for a second, I want to speak with you. The blonde was hovering a couple stones by using wind chakra alone, before he stopped and approached his sensei. The man taught him so much that every time Sojiro wanted to talk to him, Naruto was all ears. Naruto, you know that when comparing other elements, wind loses to fire, right? Sure. Fire is fed by oxygen and any wind technique will just increase the flame's power. Explained Naruto, earning a smile in retrospect to how much Naruto learned in such a short period of time. Indeed, wind technique will just feed the flame, making it useless against Kaiden techniques. However, there is one situation when wind techniques can be used to beat a fire technique, can you explain to me? Sojiro asked, before he saw Naruto thinking for a bit. After some time without an answer, the man decided to enlighten his student regarding the theory behind the jutsu he aimed to teach. Well, I'll give you a hint, my boy, so listen up. You said yourself that wind increases the power of the flames, correct? Naruto nodded, before Sojiro continued. So, considering that fire techniques utilize the air from the atmosphere, what would happen if there wasn't much oxygen to be used as catalyst for the flame? It took a while, but the blonde realized what Sojiro meant as he looked at his sensei like a gawking fish out of the water. Well, I guess that would be an example, but why are you telling me this, Sojiro-sensei? Naruto asked, before Sojiro smiled once more. I'm telling you this, Naruto, because recently I came up with a technique that manages to suck the air from the atmosphere, reducing it considerably, therefore cutting the catalyst needed to ignite the fire. And I intend to teach you this particular skill. However, this technique must remain a secret between you and me. It's something that Sunagakure wanted with a passion, and I fear that if they saw you doing it, trouble would sure follow. You have my word, sensei. Flashback off. Focusing the last bit of chakra he possessed, Naruto extended his free hand and started focusing on the secret technique his sensei taught him. Ninpu Kei's Seishu, ninja art, wind gathering technique. Slowly, but surely, a small ball of wind started gathering on his hand, growing larger by the second. Not even aware of what was going on, the team from Konoha could feel the heat emanating from the ball of hell, and it wouldn't take 5 seconds for them to be engulfed by it. However, it was Kakashi who realized that the fireball was diminishing somehow. His Sharingan could detect the usage of chakra next to him, and he turned his neck to see Naruto's hand forming a ball of air the size of a fist, and it was growing. Naruto, the blonde didn't answer anything, though. Just keeping this technique active was hard enough and required his complete focus the entire time. Suddenly, he molded every bit of his chakra, before seeing the ball of air quadrupling in size, therefore diminishing the ball of fire up to the point that it didn't represent much danger to the team as they managed to jump in time to avoid being killed by the massive ball of death. After landing on a safe place, the entire team wondered what the hell happened and how they were still alive. Naruto was already unconscious. And because of it, he didn't realize that the team headed straight to Sunagakure, where they would make sure that Guy managed to return Gaara to the hidden village in the sand alive. He missed the celebration that occurred in Suna with the safe return of their cage. But Kakashi made sure to tell everyone who it was that managed to rescue Gaara. Naruto was praised as a hero of Sunagaku. It was a shame, though, that he wasn't awake to hear his name being shouted repeatedly by the villagers. Both Team Guy and Team Kakashi chose to leave to Konoha as soon as Naruto awakened. Temari and Kankuro took them to a nice hotel to spend the night. With Yugo blissfully unaware of the events in Sunagaku, a very tired and battered Yugo opened the door to her little, but cozy apartment. Her shift was long, tiring, and everything she wanted right now was to have a long hot bath, followed by a few hours of sleep. Yugo never complained about her job, even though there were times she regretted accepting the honor of being an Anbu soldier. Today was one of these occasions. A B-ranked criminal managed to get loose from the cell he was in, before killing at least 3 members of the unit. One of them was on her team. Eventually, she managed to recapture the guy and lock him up once more. But the damage was done and a young shinobi lost his life because of it. Sure, the ninja life was no picnic. Everyone knew that upon accepting the headband, and especially everyone who was enrolled under the Anbu forces. But Yugo didn't like it when one of her subordinates was killed. To some, it was a mere casualty, but to her, it meant something else. She was tutored by one of the best Anbu captains, Sharingan no Kakashi. And as such, she tried to command her team like he did. No man was left behind, everyone protecting one another. As the hot water came bombarding her soft skin, the woman let out a heavy sigh in response to what happened today and wondering how long it would be before she cracked under the pressure of being an Anbu captain. Well, to me, your strongest Anbu captain ever. The sudden memory of what Naruto spoke 2 months ago forced a smile on her face. At the time, they were in a fancy restaurant located within Water Country, discussing some general shinobi topics like the Anbu and the stressful life she led every day. Naruto said that Yugo was the strongest Anbu captain he'd ever met, before she contradicted him saying that she was the only Anbu captain he knew, but with a warm smile on her face, accepting the praise that had every intention of cheering her up. Instantly, she wondered if he was doing well on his mission. From what she knew, his team was sent to Sunagaku in order to rescue the cage from the Akatsuki's hands. Surely, it was no less than an S-ranked mission, and normally it would be no less than suicide to send a team of 3 Chunin and a Junin to a top mission like this. But she had confidence in his skills, seeing as she helped him train so that he could beat tough opponents like Akatsuki. Once leaving the shower and putting on some night clothes, she went straight to bed as her body was demanding at least a couple hours of rest. Author note: okay, here was my version of Gaara's rescue. To some who thought that Naruto came out as too strong, it wasn't my intention, at least not entirely. I wanted to show his new skills, acquired through hard work and extreme focus on his new resolve. Also, you all noticed some different routes chosen, which means that different events will follow, but what would be the fun in following Kishimoto's plot right? Not to mention, it would be a waste of time, seeing as no one likes to listen what already happened, but a different version of it. Tell me what you think. Thanks for listening. I hope you guys liked it. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like for more what ifs and support the author. See you guys in the next video.